Welcome to the Competitive 40k podcast, brought to you by Vanguard Tactics. This is a Warhammer 40k podcast where we analyse the meta and develop strategies to help you become a better competitive 40k player. I'm your host, Stephen Box, and it is my mission to raise the standard of the game both on and off the tabletop. So already we are at episode 5. I can't quite believe it in how quickly time flies. Now in this show, as I alluded to last week on episode 4, we actually got the exclusive interview with Neil Kerr and Tom Adriany. And you might be thinking, who are these guys? Well, these guys are two of the people behind the 40k World Championships. So, imagine a World Cup for Warhammer 40,000. These are two of the guys behind it. There is obviously a board members and everything else supporting this and others, but Tom and Neil are certainly two of the individuals that are kind of steering the ship, and it is an absolutely fantastic interview that we've got lined up. Now, you may or may not be aware, and you may have heard something called the ETC, which stands for the European Team Championships, and essentially what's happened is the 40k side of the ETC has broken away to set up their own World Championships. So this is incredibly exciting and a project that I'm really passionate about helping as much as I possibly can. These guys have got my absolute full support, and this is an incredible interview. You're not only going to find out about the origins of the ETC, what's happened since, why they've decided to break away, and what's going to be happening next, and also what the future holds. So we're going to be covering that on our 40k in focus. And if also you're interested in playing for your country at one point in the future, then we give some really good top tips on how you can go about doing that, and some other exciting opportunities that come down the pipeline. And then the better the meta today, we're going to be going over how to beat an Eldar list that I've got. And obviously for all the show notes, whether it's the links to everything that myself, Neil and Tom talk about, is going to be over on our website, which is www.vanguardtactics.com/blog/EP5. Now, I do think I get ahead of myself in this recording, and I thought it was episode 6, but we are actually episode 5. So all you need to do is /EP5, and you'll see obviously all the links that you need to everything that Tom and Neil talk about. Also, you can find the list that I'm going to be discussing in regards to Better the Meta, and you can download that. And then also on our Ask VT section, or where you guys get to ask us a question, I'm going to cover a couple of the questions that we've had in so far, some of my top picks. So if you're new to 40k and you're just picking it up, then there's going to be a question there for you also at the very end, along with a couple of others. So do stay tuned right until the end, as we've got covering some really good content to help you crush the craft world. Maybe I should call it that, crushing craft world. And some other top tips. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoy this episode, and now over to the interview with myself, Tom and Neil. So welcome, Neil and Tom. An absolute pleasure to have you both on the show today, and I'm really excited about this episode. I've got loads of questions for you both. So first of all, guys, thank you so much for coming on, Neil.
Thank you, no worries.
And obviously coming back onto the show. And Tom, first time with us at Vanguard Tactics, so welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
No, it's honestly, it's my pleasure, and thanks so much for giving up your evening to come on. So obviously, you're coming on for this one main reason, and we're also going to talk a little bit about, so please don't let me forget, but the Belgium Team Championships.
Oh, I won't let you forget, don't worry.
Cool, so we'll cover that at the end if people are interested in that one, because I think it's a really exciting event, and I absolutely loved playing that event last year, so I definitely want to talk about that one. So guys, so obviously, what was the ETC? And I've spoke about the ETC before on various episodes of YouTube and other things like that. So the reason obviously I've got you both on today is to talk about why the 40k side of the ETC has now split and going your own way. And as I'm aware, it's you two and kind of Ishak are the sort of main trio involved in kind of heading the, steering the ship, so to speak. And I know there's a lot still to be confirmed and stuff, and I'm sure there's loads of other guys and people that are helping you out as well. So yeah, can you kind of give us a little bit of so over to sort of you, Tom, first of all, before we kind of get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself, Tom.
Yeah, well, I'm from Belgium, of course. I've been in the hobby for like more than 20 years. I started in second edition, and I started playing tournaments because I wanted to meet new people that also like this hobby.
Yep.
And ever since I started playing, I made so many friends that I never stopped playing tournaments. Went abroad, joined ETC, and I never looked back actually. So yeah, I like this game not because of the game itself, but more of the friendship I've had because of it. So I still see myself playing this game in like 10, 15 years because I want to entertain those friendships. So that's what it's about for me. I'm here to have some good times with my buddies, and that's what it's all about.
Oh, nice. And what is it that you did for the ETC, and what was your involvement there? And just quickly, what is the ETC anyway? Can you give us a quick brief download on that?
Yeah. So the ETC started in 2006. It was basically started by some Polish guys who were tired of playing their own guys all the time. So the Polish team was very strong. Like in 2006, they had like 2 or 3 tournaments per weekend sometimes. So these guys always confronted each other. And then at the time the internet started booming and forums got popular, they just reached out to like foreigners to at least have some more opposition from somewhere else. So that's when the first ETC was born, actually. So I think they had like 8 teams from Sweden, France, some Polish guys, and some other countries. And yeah, it took off from there. The year after, 40k joined, and then I think I got involved in 2009 because one of the Belgian guys, Klaas, he was involved with the fantasy side, and he knew me because I was doing a lot of stuff here in Belgium, organizing tournaments and whatnot. And he said, yeah, you have the right mindset to do this on the level of DTC. So just come to DTC and then apply for chairman, because he was actually leaving. So there was a position for free. So I said, okay, I will apply. Nobody knows me because I was a first coming captain at the time. Nobody knows me. I will never get elected, but I'll put my name on there just in case, just to make Klaas happy. But actually he lobbied a bit to have me involved. So from then on, I was very, very involved with ETC. So at the time, there was a really good group behind it. There was Pierre, there was Jedi, one of the guys who started this whole thing. And from 2009, I was involved as a chairman of the ETC, which is like the missing link between the captains, so all the people that are playing DTC, and then the organizers, the people who actually do the groundwork. And we just helped develop the tournament over the years and make it a bit more professional and make sure it got run in some cases. So yeah, I've been heavily involved with all aspects actually, like from the organization, the rule specs writing, getting the people motivated to come, getting new teams ready, talking to new captains, talking to old captains, solving a lot of issues like with payments and whatnot. So I've been doing almost everything around ETC from one side or the other over the years. So
no, that's I've always kind of seen you as in that sort of position as well, as someone to go to if I've ever had a question about everything, and you've always been so helpful and just kind of pointed me in the right direction with things. And I know you're very well respected as well, so honestly, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. I really appreciate it. So Neil, back for a second time, mate.
Yeah, back for more punishment.
Yep. So by the way, the feedback from our first recording, which was actually a YouTube video, not a podcast, went down so well, and I can't tell you the amount of people that got in touch and said, love that episode, it's really helped me, whether it's, for them to understand more about how chess clocks work and the ethos of, competitive play, and actually made them feel really empowered to do an event. So Neil, it was a fantastic episode. So just for the guys that are listening to the podcast, maybe they didn't watch that episode, and if you do, you can head over to the YouTube channel Vanguard Tactics and search for it's the best thumbnail actually, which is just says cheating head referee.
It is brilliant.
Now it's not actually meaning that Neil was a cheating head referee, but I think I wanted to put cheating with head referee Neil Kerr, but it was just too long to fit in one line, so I was like, I don't need the with, I'll get rid of that. And then obviously people were like, oh, this is crazy, we've got a cheating head referee. But anyway, we decided to leave it. It was funny. So go back and listen to that episode if you haven't done so already. It's a cracking episode. But for Neil, give the guys a quick download on, you know, yourself and your sort of background in 40k before we get stuck into the juicy topic of the break between 40k and ETC.
Yeah, so my name's Neil Kerr. I've been playing 40k since first edition, competitively since third edition. I was back then third, fourth, fifth, and onwards. A lot of people in the UK may remember the gaming group Flame On, sort of the tournament group that dominated for many years. And I was one of the founding members of that. I was also a big TO. Used to run multiple events, including the independent UK GT, Battle for the Chumps, and Vapn Attack. I did all that up until 2012, at which point I moved to Sweden and been continuing to TO, game competitively ever since as well. So I've probably been playing competitively now for coming up to 20 years, actually, which is quite scary.
And what's been your involvement with the ETC in the last few years?
Yeah, so first time I went to the ETC was the same time as Tom. It was 2009, the first ETC in Munster in Germany. I was actually part of Team England at that time. There was no Team Scotland, but the next year we got a Scottish team together, and together with Tim King. People know him. Anyone in the UK will know him from the Caledonia events.
Yep.
We founded, ran, captains between us the Scottish team for many years. And I did that up until, Tom will correct me if I'm wrong here, it was 2015, which is the second Serbian ETC. Is that right, Tom?
2014, 2015 was Czech Republic, yeah.
Yeah, 2014, I made the decision to no longer be a player. So I played in 2013. Between 2013 and 2014, I decided to not be a player anymore and instead to put myself up as a referee. I actually gave up being the captain of Team Scotland to do this. Basically, I was sick of certain actors, certain bad actors, and bad attitudes that were spoiling the fun of the ETC for everybody. And, you know, if something needs fixing, do it yourself. And since then, I've been chairman and head chairman for a couple of years, and basically head referee ever since I became a referee.
Nice. And so you went on a bit of a crusade, really, and I think you've been extremely successful in that crusade, because I know certainly the reputation of the ETC over the years has got so much better with certain nations and certain things. And obviously we spoke a lot about that on the last episode, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
But I think what you guys have done is absolutely fantastic. And like you've said, it is, from my experience of things, it has been an extremely well-run event in regards to being at the event, from, you know, the organisation of so many teams, so many players, the singles, the terrain, absolutely everything. You guys have done a fantastic job, and I must admit, every time I know that your refereeing team there is, I feel like, great. I call there's the systems and process in place to make sure that if there's any issues at the tabletop, which there often are from time to time, then, you know, I'm in good hands as a player, which is exactly what you want. So yes, fantastic. So, okay, obviously the ETC was the European Team Championships it is essentially, I've always seen it as the World Cup for 40k, and it's been spoken on a lot about different podcasts. Obviously, if anyone listens to the American podcast, they talk a lot about the American team that won it 2 years ago. In last year, the England team won. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but it is literally an event where you've got England, Scotland, Ireland, literally all the countries that have applied, and it is essentially the World Cup for 40k, isn't it? Although it was called the European Team Championships, it's gone global now, hasn't it?
It's been global for quite a couple of years. I think first time Australia and America joined was in Gorzov.
No, America actually were in Munster, the second Munster.
Munster, yeah. So 2009, 2010, we really started going global with teams from Singapore in the fantasy side and stuff as well. So it was just called European Team Championships because it was held in Europe. And when these guys started it up, they never would have imagined that we would get here, you know. So they never even considered just calling it World Team Championships. I'm sure at the time it sounded preposterous, just the idea to the audacity to name it like that, you know. But it's essentially become that over the years. It has become the World Team Championships. Actually, we thought a few times about changing the name, but we could never align on exactly what to call it, or if it was the right time to change a name or something like that. So we always held off on the decision. So it always stayed the European Team Championships, even though it was very global already at that point.
Yeah, and obviously we're going to talk about why the 40k has left the ETC, and some people might be listening to this thinking, but Steve, they're the same thing, but they're not, are they? Because 40k isn't the only game that's played at the ETC, is it? So Tom, what other games play under the ETC event?
So you have so it started with Fantasy, which evolved into the Ninth Age over time, and then you have 40k as well, which were the two main systems. We were joined by Flames of War as a main system a couple of years ago, and since then we have some on and off games like Age of Sigmar and now Underworlds as well that are involved. We had X-Wing for a while, but they also decided to split off like 2 years ago. So yeah, it's basically just a collection of systems at the moment. There's many of them. It's growing considerably.
And
we had all.
And just to give a bit of sort of perspective, each of these, it's always been a sort of community based leadership, isn't it? There was no, as far as I was aware, there was a lot of there was a forum where people voted for certain changes and rules things, right? So it's kind of a community-led organization. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's the entire setup of the ETC. Actually, the main logo, slogan has been since the beginning, like for the players, by the players, because that's essentially what it was when the Polish started. It was just some Polish players who wanted to do international tournament, and that's actually the tenet of the tournament over the years. So it was players like me, like Neil, that organized it for the other players actually.
And
so
to put this in perspective, then we've got 40k, AOS, Ninth Age, Shadespire, like you said, X-Wing at one point, Flames of War, and there may have been others that I've missed out there. So you've got 5-6 different game systems all happening. Each of those have probably a chairman or two. Then you've also got each of those game systems also have captains for every single country that are participating. So all of a sudden, there is just so many voices, right? All trying to do what's best for either their team or their game system, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's true. And then the issue you have for the ETC is that you only have normally you only have 5 chairmen, but you have sometimes 6-7 systems. So some systems don't even have a chairman. Some systems don't even have somebody like me or Neil who's fighting for them and who's writing their rules packs or whatnot. This has been an issue for Flames of War for quite some time, where you don't have visible felt leadership, somebody who takes charge of things and guides things into the right direction. So it's been an issue for a few years at ETC now.
Okay, cool. So I'll put this to you first then, Neil. So what was kind of one of the sort of biggest reasonings for the 40k side of things to leave the ETC?
I mean, sort of the main thing that we pushed for was the fact that the ETC it's never improved in terms. It's weird to say that, but it's never improved in terms of what a player gets. The quality of terrain, the type of venue you get, the lack of terrain thereof, boards, all these things. The player experience is quite stagnated. You pay your 60 euros, and you get either a good year or a bad year, but they're not. We'll say even a good year is not anywhere near on par with say Adepticon or LVO in terms of player experience, what you get when you go in a whole experience. And that's always been frustration because we are, like Tom said, it is the World Championship. It is, sounding egotistical, probably one of the most prestigious events in the world, because a lot of people spend their entire year gearing up to this. They'll be practicing to get into their team. Once they're in their team, they're practicing. They go to team events all over Europe or in America. Most players who play in a team, their entire year is geared towards this one weekend to win. And that kind of prestige and all that commitment wasn't being reciprocated by, we'll say, the quality of organization by the host organizers, and just sort of the general quality of the event that was being packaged and presented to them. And that was always a frustration. I mean, 40k specifically, the issue was, terrain was always a huge issue. Each year, the ETC each year has a different host. So it's been in countries like Germany, to Serbia, Spain, Greece, all lots of different countries. And what happens is somebody basically applies to host ETC, their bid is accepted, they're voted on, they win the bid, and they're just giving, and then they go out and organise the event in terms of like getting the terrain, the venue, everything put together for the event to be run. The problem is that there's very little control over what happens. You know, these people can promise you the world, but often they fail to deliver.
So what could happen then, saying this, is I could put a bid in for England.
Yeah.
Let's say it gets accepted, and I've only booked a town hall down the road. It can only seat 10 people, and I'm literally getting some felt out on the table and sticking some trees down and calling it done. You know,
I mean, that's a worst case scenario.
So
but in theory, that could. I mean, what happens is you know they put a bid, they've got a venue, and they put the budget. This is the venue. This is what we're going to do. You know, and it's like, okay, this is accepted. But then obviously, say again, looking at 40k as an example, 40k has specific needs. We have specific terrain needs. You know, a 40k game is made or broken by how good the terrain is.
Yeah.
And what would happen is a lot of these hosts wouldn't have terrain. They'd be borrowing terrain from clubs or stuff. Sometimes they'd be borrowing terrain from previous ETCs. The Serbians that Tom was involved in, actually for many years, lent terrain and would drive over Europe with like a truck full of terrain. But there was never consistency, and it came to the big problem that each year there's a different host, and that host gets all the money, and whether they make a profit or loss, the money is theirs. And there's no continuity. And then the next year it's a totally different host, and they get a chunk, and they get the money that year. There's no continuity. There's no kind of like ability to build upon the year after year, because financially the money is not owned by is not held by the ETC, and it just creates lots of problems. And you would have people I know, players and that, showing up to events, and they'd be saying before the event, "I wonder what it's going to be like."
Yeah.
Because what you promised and what would happen, unfortunately, sometimes were never near what you expected. You know, we've had years of unpainted tables. We've had years of not like toilets that do not work. We've had some horrendous years. We've even had years where the host organizer has openly ripped people off and not given the lunches that was, you know, everyone paid for.
Yeah.
In the ticket price, and it's just kind of crazy.
And it must be incredibly frustrating for yourself and also Tom that your hands are completely tied, right? You can write the best missions, you can speak to all the captains, you can do all the logistics in the world, but you're not physically putting the terrain together. You're not overseeing the table layouts, are you? It's kind of, you're not booking the venue. So I can imagine, guys, it can be quite worrying for you about how the chips are going to land, so to speak.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, we have no control over that. I mean, and then you can try to mitigate like a lot of these circumstances by talking to people and communicating, but even then it's not a given, you know. Like, just to tell you a small example of something that actually happened at ETC. So when it was held in Greece, we drove over all the terrains and the tables from Serbia to Greece, like a 10-ton truck, really literally 10 tons of material that we loaded with like 8 or 9 people. We drove it there, and we told them like we needed a forklift or whatnot to get all the stuff out. And we arrive there, and there's literally 2 Greeks to help us, and they like made this wooden board with like wheels under it. That was their idea of having a forklift. So you communicate up front, like, okay, we're coming with very heavy stuff. We need somebody to help us on site. We need a forklift to help unload, and that's what they give us. Of course, after loading 5 planks on it, the stuff broke, so we had to manually unload everything.
Yeah, I mean, that year, literally, huge shout out to Team Australia and Tom Layton, because I was there. There was 10 of us trying to unload this 10-ton truck, and we put a shout on Facebook. And the Aussies had arrived the day before, and Tom had literally just got off the plane, and they were in the vicinity, and they came to the venue. Instead of sightseeing, like a lot of the people decided to do, they came to the venue, and they spent all day helping us unload this. And if they hadn't done that, we would never have been able to set things up. You know, we were there for like, 12 hours, Tom? Like in a arena that had no AC, it was like 40-something degrees. We were naked and completely soaked through sweat by the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that was with 20 people doing it, double the number we would have had if the Aussies and Tom didn't come.
Yeah.
You know.
So it just shows that you can communicate and they can promise you things, but we had a lot of situation where in the end they just didn't deliver on their promises.
Yeah, and it must be incredibly frustrating for yourselves. Like I as obviously I only had a small hand in things last year, being a captain for the United Nations team. And me and you, Tom, had a few back and forths with payments and other stuff that had to get sorted. And I know the amount of hours that you put into that event, Tom, and same for yourself, Neil. And it must be incredibly frustrating putting all this time, energy, and effort in for when you're not getting paid essentially, or certainly, and if you are, it's going to be nowhere near what you guys should be getting paid for the amount of work you guys do, because for the amount of hours you guys are putting in. So it must be really frustrating to kind of have to. It probably feels like the reset button every single year. Okay, we've got to start again.
No, it is the reset button, yeah. And it's not just about us. Like I said, come back to the teams. For some of these teams from like Eastern Europe, the ETC it literally costs them several months' wages to be there.
Yeah.
Like the cost of flights, accommodation, it's a huge financial investment. And again, they will have spent all year, going to tournaments to qualify for their team, investing thousands of hours in developing lists alongside their team, practice weekends, attending team events, the entire year of like time and energy investment. And it's just the same. They arrive and they'd be like, oh right, this is wrong. This is not what we needed. This is making the games not, it's just a frustration. You're not being listened to on one hand, or on the other hand, promises aren't being fulfilled continually.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that kind of I found quite frustrating was that I would have, to be honest, preferred it to be able to go to an individual or a couple of individuals, and if I had an issue, I could get that resolved, or I could find out the verdict, what was going on. But because it was very, like you said, community driven, so you got all the captains, all the chairmen having a vote on how things work. I'll be honest, it was quite frustrating, and it felt, for me as a captain for that 1 year, extremely political, in something that kind of put me off a little bit, actually.
And to quantify what you're talking about, Steve, you're not talking about when the 40k captains vote on, say, the rules pack for 40k. No. You're talking about that to get anything changed at ETC, every captain is voting from every system, even if the decision isn't affecting their system.
So this was, I'll give you the specific example to give this some context. Obviously, I was captain of the United Nations team, and I saw a vote from some of the other systems that were then being put through, which was extremely worrying for me, because I just, agreed to play for the UN. I'd already, I actually, Vanguard Tactics sponsored my UN team to get them all kit. So obviously I'd already put in a huge amount of money to see my team through. I'd been chatting to the guys. We'd been putting in hours in, and we only had a month to prepare for this event, sorting out dice, logistics, flights, accommodation, everything. And then to see a vote put through another game system which said we believe that United Nation team shouldn't be able to podium. Now I'm under no disillusion that my team would have podiumed, but I wanted the opportunity to at a competitive event, and I was sat there for a few days until the vote got passed that we could, because luckily most of the 40k captains came through and said no, it's fine. But it felt extremely hostile.
No, I understand you completely, and those kind of decisions are actually part of what's driven us to move away, because we think that you should enable the people that come, and like you said, you invest so much time and energy to actually do us a favor by being the uneven team, and we think that should be rewarded and not put in such a negative light like that.
Yeah. And that's it. And the thing is, 40k, the 40k captains had no issue with the idea of you podiuming. It's that would change a core tenet of the ETC, and even though it was only going to be specifically 40k, every other captain gets a vote, and like you said, it becomes purely political. And a lot of the time, quite honestly, people don't care about the system outside their own. So why would they bother? They're not interested. It helps someone else out.
And because the other systems were unprivy to the, I suppose, the context in which the United Nations team was selected, because without that information, it can, was lots of, oh, it could be an all-star team or it could be this, but in reality, it's not, because they didn't know the context. And this is where I feel like that you guys moving away, you can have a lot more control now, and I'm really excited for what you guys are going to do. So obviously, I'm sure we all wish the ETC the best of luck in all their endeavours going forward in whatever they do. So we'll kind of leave that behind now. So let's focus on the future. So what is the name for this new 40k side of things? Have you guys got a name? Have you got a name yet?
I'll say, go on, Tom. It's the World Team Championships, WTC, or as it'll probably get shortened to by a lot of people, Worlds.
The Worlds.
Officially World Team Championships.
Nice. Okay, cool. The World Team Championships. I like it. Yeah, cool. So now you guys obviously pushing forward. Tom, what does this mean for the 40k side of things now? What's the future hold?
Well, actually, it doesn't mean much, because we're going to stick to the same regimen. So we're going to have the same kind of structure that we had before. We're going to have bits in. We're going to vote on where to go. We're going to have the same people involved that were involved in the past. And actually, we've expanded a bit, because ever since we decided to move, there's been more involvement from other people. So we're with more to do the same kind of work, so we can divide the workload a bit, which is nice. But in essence, it's just going to be the same event going forward. Of course, we have some ideas where to take it and to maybe professionalize it a bit and work on some inventory that we can use to have that terrain and have those mats ready, and just work on getting a better event year by year and expanding on the streaming and stuff like that to get it more accessible, involving more teams, like promoted in like Asia and Japan and China and stuff, and just having a better event that's open and accessible to more people.
And just to put this into some context, there was a vote, wasn't there, that derived this split. It wasn't just Neil and Tom decided, guys, we're jumping ship. There was a vote. Am I right?
Yeah. There was.
From all the 40k captains, yeah?
Yeah, despite we'll say a lot of the conspiracy theories, Tom and Ishik were some of the longest holdouts against leaving. Like this has been something that's been talked about for growing and talked about in an increasing way for several years. It's not like a sudden snap decision. But myself, we can't tell the captains what to do. And in the end, it was correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, 90% voted to leave. Yeah. Every team that was eligible to vote, voted. And to be eligible means you had to have played ETC in the past 2 years. And 90% of those teams voted to leave. So that's overwhelming. It's a lot more than Brexit got.
Yeah, this is something historical. This has been building up for like 5 or 6 years straight. Is all that frustration that's bubbling with the captains?
Yeah, I think to be honest, it's been building since Poland and the 10th, slowly but surely.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. So it's obviously, like, just to put that into some sort of context, because I didn't want people listening thinking, oh well, So what you said there, Tom, was that not much is changing in regards to the teams. So all the team captains, the current infrastructure of literally the old ETC captains are now moving to the W or the Worlds, right?
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, I think like Chris Haynes, the Canadian captain, Canada summed it up best. He said, imagine ETC as like a multinational organization. That's the whole ETC, the chairman. And then they have obviously like subsidiary companies, AOS, 40k, 9phase, etc. What's happened is the company that is 40k has left the parent organization, but the whole company is gone. So nothing has changed. 40k, like what was 40k at the ETC up until last month is going to be exactly what 40k is at the WCC. It's the same teams, the same people. The missions and rules for this year have already been like play tested and discussed and voted on by the captains. What's changing is there's no upper management controlling us anymore. It's just we are totally in control of ourselves now. We've become a cooperative rather than part of a larger organization.
Cool, nice. So in regards then, does this mean that you guys can like keep terrain from 1 year to the next and like, get sponsorships on board in the future for, like you said, mats or I don't know, like you said, terrain or anything else? Is that something that is a possibility now?
Yeah, that's
Tom?
what we're actively going to work towards. So that's what we want to aim for, and that's what we're slowly building up.
So if anyone's listening and they want to get involved with this type of thing, then you can head over to www.vanguardtactics.com/blog/EP6. I think now I'm on episodes. I think this is going to be episode 6. I will correct myself if so at the start of this blog. But anyway, you can head over there, and I'm going to put all the contact details for Neil and for Tom. So if you want to get in touch and reach out and help these guys create the new professional worlds, then obviously that's going to be the place to go. So we never know, it could be a potential sponsor listening to the show. Okay, so Neil, what's the sort of ethos then behind the worlds?
Ethos.
What's the ethos? I think you've got your own ethos behind why you play or referee 40k. So what's the ethos now? Moving forward with the worlds.
I mean, it's still the same ethos that it's always been. It's it's a gathering of, we'll say, the best players from different countries, from different communities, coming together to compete for the title of who is the best that year. And it's a completely a player-driven tournament. A lot of tournaments it's the TO who decides everything, and he puts a package out there, and people go, "Oh, I like that," and they buy tickets. This is, it's driven by the players. The rules pack, the missions, they're all player-driven. Though it's all decided by the players. Tom, myself, that we have input. We maybe present ideas, but equally everyone else has an equal share, an equal voice in presenting those ideas.
Nice.
So it's still for the players by the players. It's just now for 40k players by 40k players.
Love it. No, cool. It's good. So then, in regards to the rules pack, quickly, obviously the ex-ETC rules pack, there was things like no Forge World units, and it was kind of a blend between sort of Maelstrom missions and Eternal War, wasn't it? So kind of, Tom, I know you've been heavily responsible for a lot of the mission pack. Is that still going to be the case, or is it going to be moving over to sort of like ITC, or like a blend of Eternals and ITC secondaries? Where does the things move forward now in terms of the game itself in the rules?
Well, like Neil just said, all these things were voted for by the captains, so this has been slowly evolving over the years. But every year we have some votes to change the format a little bit, here and there. Every year the Forge World vote crops up, and it always gets shut down by all the captains, with 80% majority or something. So I'm sure we'll have that vote this year as well, but I'm sure the result will be the same. So basically, nothing will change because it's the captains who are behind it, and they will keep on voting like they've had in the past. So I don't think ITC will be an option for most of them. So we can have that vote and we can have those discussions, but I don't think we will change anything from what we've been doing in the past few years.
Nice.
Yeah, and on the missions, this is something I get asked a lot. It's quite important. The ITC is designed as a single-player tournament pack. It's a mission set for one-on-one play. The ETC missions are designed specifically with team play involved. They don't work as well in a single player tournament, but they're designed for team play.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And guys, can you give us a quick while you're here, and obviously let's sort of dive into this, because it will for no longer be known as the ETC rules pack, because it will be known as the WTC rules pack, right? So you've got, obviously, it is the worlds. Obviously, there's going to be representations from absolutely every single country that wants to participate. And I want to go into a little bit how you can become a team player and things in the future. So if you are listening and getting excited by this podcast and you think, I want to represent my country, I think I've got what it takes to be the best player in my country to represent, for England, for Queen and country, so to speak. So in regards then to the team format, how many players are on a team?
Neil, you want to...
All right. I was just speaking stuff. What you're going to speak. It's 8 players per team. And then on top of that, a team can have a non-playing captain. So sometimes the captain is actually playing. He's just driving it. And they can also have a coach who has this very specific role as a non-player, where he can he can't give like coaching in game and tell people like, oh, don't forget to do this, don't forget to do that. You can't help people in game. What they can do is they can coordinate the team during a round, because obviously it's important to know how maybe the team starts like a game goes against them that they thought was going to be a win, so they need to obviously adjust their game plan across the team to make points back. Maybe telling people to play safe, maybe say need to risk it, and that's a really important role. So 8 players, either the captain plays or he's not playing, and then a coach.
And there's a pre-game before the actual games, isn't there? So let's say we've got England versus France, round 1. And you're not putting... It's not just one player plays, is it? You've got all 8 players are playing at the same time, aren't they? From each team.
Yeah, so 8 players are matched. Each team is matched, player versus player.
So this isn't one huge singles competition where you just play against anyone, and it's whoever happens to do the best. All the teams are dotted up. It's actually all of the English player, all of the Team England will be playing against all of Team France on one of the rows in the hall or the stadium, and it will be literally all of England versus all of France. And in the pre-game game is called the pairings, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Tom, you should take this, because as a referee, this is what I don't pay attention to, because I pay attention to all the FAQs.
So
rules.
What is this pairings, Tom? Talk us through it.
It's like a whole game within the game. So it's like a system where you can actively try to get some good matchups for your team. Like we know there's like rock, paper, scissors in 40k, and this pairing system allows you to abuse it up to some point if you're good at the game, within the game. So basically every team puts one player forward, and then the opposing team puts 2 lists against that list. And then the team that put down a list, called the defender, can choose which of the 2 he takes from the attacker, and can also choose his table, which like makes for an entire tactical component that no other tournament that I know of actually has, which makes for a very exciting actually.
Yeah. And just to put some context on this, guys, please correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, if anything's changed, I'm only going off what I knew was last year. So please correct me if I'm wrong at any point. But a player or a team can only use a faction or book once. Is that correct? So if I decide to take Craft World Eldar, nobody else can take any Craft World units, even if they're taking Ynnari or Drakari. They can't have any allies from Craft World because I've already took it. Is that correct still?
That's correct, yeah. And that's a system we don't want to deviate from, I think, because it makes it very exciting. Like you have always like the top dogs. So then the side lists you take from the like 4 or 5 very powerful codexes is actually what makes it very interesting to come play at ETC, because you see these lists that nobody else plays during the year in singles events.
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on that, for example, there's a team tournament that Tom's running in Belgium this weekend, and one of the French lists is 90 Harlequins.
Yeah, nice.
It's just amazing. It's just all Harlequins on foot.
Yeah.
And it actually works in the format, which is great. You know, it's a list you would otherwise never see, and it's played, and within the pairings you can use it to really get a good matchup that it has a good chance of winning. So it's an aspect, I think, that makes the ETC very unique and very, very fun to be a part of, I think.
Yeah, I mean, people do say, you hear this a lot, this is a WTCR or an ETC, or now it would be a WTCR. You hear that words a lot. Yeah. And like the army, because it's the pairing natures, a lot of these armies are what we call skew lists. They are geared towards a very specific thing often.
Yeah,
because it is such a game. It's a game of poker basically. You're trying to outbluff and outguess your opponents to get your favorable matchups, and obviously screw over theirs.
So to get back to the pairings, then Tom, you obviously said so. One team's a defender. They put a guy forward, and that player, let's say they're running Tau. The opposition, so France, would put forward 2 people they want to put into the Tau, and it could be they might be throwing a team away, thinking, you just lose that, but we can get rid of Tau because they kill us. Maybe all the other lists, for example, maybe they're the rock to everyone else's scissors. So they just think, right, we'll throw one guy under the bus, we'll get rid of them. I'm sorry, mate, but you're taking a loss. Do what you can, but it means everyone else can have a clearer run than all the next 7 players. And then that would happen again and again and again and again until you've got literally 2 random people that are drawn out just to play each other. Yeah, so it kind of happens about 6 times, isn't it?
Yep.
And as a captain, it was my job to put those people forward, to have those difficult conversations with my players, to try and guess what my opposition captain was about to do next, who they had left in their hand, who I predict them to use as a defender next, or do I want certain players on certain terrains. There's like a light, when we say light board, as in there's not much terrain, and right up to a heavy board where there's loads and loads of terrain. So like that Harlequin list is probably going to operate really well on a heavy board, isn't it? So So you want to make sure that your Harlequin player gets that pick of that board, so they can do have a preferable matchup. And then so you got these 8-on-8 team or players. Then how does it work? Is it win-loss? How is it scored? How do we know who is better, England or France, in this one example? How does that work?
Yeah, so you just combine both team scores, and if there's a difference of more than 10, so I think the cutoff is 75 points. So if you have 75 or less points, you lose the round. And from the moment you have 86 points to the team, you win the round. And everything between 85 and 76 is a draw for the teams.
Okay, so and then in regards to how many points are available at one single table, is it still 20?
Still 20, yeah. So the total of the round can be 160-0, but that almost never happens.
Yeah.
Because the way the system is designed for the pairing is you're always going to have 2 or 3 bad matchups in your team. You just cannot avoid it with the way the pairing works. So it's about managing the bad games and scoring little points from it. And then these 4 or 5 points that you normally shouldn't be getting might actually give you the win as a team. So that's what makes it also exciting to be part of this team competition. Even if you're in a bad game and you only get a couple of points, it might be super important for your team. So the feeling you get even when losing a game, but getting those 2-3 points for your team is just indescribable. You need to be there to experience it and to know what it means to be part of that kind of competitive play. It's really nice to be a part of it, I think.
It is incredible for people that are competitive, and also there's not that mentality of just, oh, this is a bad matchup, so I'm just going to concede, or this game's over, or there's no salt, is there? It's more a case of, as a captain, I'm going to say to my player, look, if you can get 2 points out of this game, out of the 20, please we just need you to get 2 points if you can do that. And they come back and they're like, I got 4 points, and they're so excited that they got 4 points out of 2. And it's all about not necessarily winning the game, but actually, doing more than you were expected to, isn't it? And going above and beyond what you possibly can. And it really pushes people to be the best possible players they can be. And I know as an individual, I took so much away from that experience, and it really developed me as a player. Now when I play a lot more singles, I use a lot of those same theories, and that same mentality drives me when I play now. So I would definitely, if anyone ever gets the opportunity to play at the WTC or the Worlds, take that opportunity, and because it's going to develop you as a player. So obviously this 20-0, Tom, you can score points, and again, if I'm wrong, please let me know. You can score on Eternal War missions, so you kind of select the mission, don't you? So it could be like is it the Scouring, or is it the Scourging? Which one? I can't remember which way it's called now.
I never remember the names, actually.
So could you just quickly, just to give the people a bit of a listen who think, oh, this sounds cool, can you reel off one of the missions, or as an example, maybe last year's mission? I want to know the Eternal, the Maelstrom, and the kill points, and the secondaries, and all that kind of, or the tertiaries. How do you score points? How complex is this game, and how fun can it be?
Yeah, so we have 3 different ways to score, basically. You always have a Maelstrom component, so we use a mix of the basic rules and then the chapter-approved missions that come out. So we have, before it was always like end-game scoring, but now we have quite a few that are progressive as well. So we have the Maelstrom. We changed the system this year to include schemes of war, because over the past few years we always had a comment that the Maelstrom component was too random, because we had a full deck of 36 cards, and sometimes you just get a stuck hand and you cannot do anything about it. So we switched it over this year to the schemes of war, where you only have 18 cards that you can choose at the list creation stage. So you can choose actually which 18 of your cards are active. And then you also have access to a few stratagems to manipulate your hand, which you didn't have access to before, which makes it way more manageable on the Maelstrom part. Then we have some Eternal War component, like we have the raise mission, where you can raise the objectives in the deployment zone of the other player. And then we have some of the progressive scoring, like the one with the characters. I don't know, intelligence.
Yeah.
Something with intelligence, yeah. So there's quite a good mix of Eternal War and Maelstrom with kind of different missions, and then you also have like Linebreaker, First Strike, and the Slay the Warlord as a third way to score, and then there's always a kill point differential as well. So if I would say kill 10 of your units and you would kill 4 of mine over the course of the game, then I would have a +6 differential. And that would count in your total score of the game as well. And all those scores combined, all those cards you score, then all the Eternal War score, the secondaries like kill the Warlord, and then the kill point differential make up your score from the player. So let's say I score 57 points overall and you score 30, then that's a 27 point difference. You have that, and then you just add that to your score. So you score with 10-10, and then the difference is 17 divided by 2, let's say, then it would have been 18 to win for me. So it sounds very complex, but when you play the mission a few times, it's actually very, very organic and natural to count a score like that.
Yeah, it takes a couple of goes, and I think it is something that it's, again, it rewards the teams that put the practice in, doesn't it?
Yeah, like I said, this way of scoring, like with the Maelstrom part, the Eternal War part, and then the kill point part, it makes for games that are very, very dynamic. You need to go places to score objectives. You need to be very mobile. You need to be also very resistant, because you cannot give up the kill points. So it adds an extra dimension, I think, to our kind of games compared to a lot of other systems, I think. Yeah. So which makes for very rewarding games. And then you also have like the matchups and stuff. So it's a very, very complex dynamic, but it's very rewarding if you can make it work for you.
And is it still random game length, or are you doing 6 turns now?
Yeah, we switched to 6 turns fixed, yeah.
Yeah, nice. And because that was actually voted in last year, wasn't it? So you guys are kind of thinking a year ahead, which is really, really cool. So I like that. And because that was one of my biggest things, was it's hard to plan, isn't it? That randomness, and sometimes you could be winning the entire game, and just because it ended on 6, you lose it or whatever. So, no, personally, this is my opinion. I think that's a really good move forward, going to the 6. And also, I think my biggest complaint about it was sometimes that randomness of Maelstrom. You're like, I'm winning the fight here and I'm winning the war, but I just happen to lose the battle because of the Maelstrom cards, which can be incredibly frustrating. So having a deck which you can sort of have some control over is a really, really good way to go with this thing. And it's nice to have that blend of different ways to score, whether it's now progressive or end game or all this kind of stuff, which is absolutely brilliant to see. And, do, like you said, do lead to some incredibly exciting matchups. And at the end of the day, if you guys are listening thinking, oh, that does sound quite complex and I don't know if that I could do that, well, you got to remember that Neil and Tom here and Ishak are creating an event to basically highlight the best team in the world. So with that, like I said, the best teams will be practicing each of these mission packs. They'll be practicing on different terrain. They'll be practicing different matchups. Do you have a fixed deployment zone as well?
Yeah, so every mission, every mission has a fixed deployment zone. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
So we want to be able to enable teams to practice ahead. So we also have like 8 rows of tables, and it's fixed terrain. So every team knows perfectly like which terrain piece goes where. So they can really take all that with them when they practice for our event. So they can prepare in like real conditions. Like in the past, there was sometimes a problem. You would go to an event and you wouldn't know what the terrain looked like, and then you took lists, that relied a bit on terrain that wasn't there, or relied on area terrain, and then you're playing on tables that don't have area terrain. So we wanted to get rid of that, which is like the reason why we standardize our maps.
Yeah.
And it has really enabled teams to step it up and to really take a better approach to preparing good for the event. And we see it over the years that teams are just better prepared, and the games are more tight, and the games are just more exciting because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to put in there as well, just qualify as well, that when Tom says that there's a set map, there's 8. Each team plays on 8 tables. 8 players meet each other at 8 tables. It's not the same terrain setup for each table. It's a spectrum of terrain, from a very light board with very little line of sight blockers to boards that are really dense in large line of sight blocking pieces of terrain. So you can tailor your list to be my list requires. My list works best in an open board or a more dense board, and maybe your list is going to get put forward early. Because also, when you're put forward to be the defender, and then the opponent, like the opponent's, it was 2 teams to attack, list to attack, you pick one. The defender gets to pick the board, and that can be a huge advantage as well. And because there's a spectrum of boards, it allows for a spectrum of army builds as well.
Yeah, nice. So is it again going to be strictly countries only that can play in the WTC?
Yes.
Yeah, so like we said, the captains are still the same.
Mm-hmm.
Even the captains that voted no to leave are with us. They're behind us, and they support the decision. I mean, it's a democracy, so they will be moving with us. We don't have like a set of captains that will split off from us, but they're the ones still driving everything. So
cool.
It's not likely to change their minds to like have an open competition where we have like 5 teams from America and 20 teams from the UK. I don't think that's the onset of what they would like the event to be. So that's not something we're gonna examine to go to either, unless they give us the signal that that's what they really want.
And also,
but at the same time, we are looking forward. Like this year, because we have limited time. The vote was done in January. We're going to be running it on the same date. It's going to be in August. Time is limited, so we're focused on getting the team event right. This event for the teams of all the teams, so it's not changing. But going forwards, there's nothing to say that in future years we might not have another tournament running parallel. Another team running parallel that could be open to anyone.
Okay, yeah.
It's just that we'll say the WTC, the nation versus nation,
the prestigious event, yeah,
will not change because it's prestigious and it's totally unique.
You don't want to dilute that as well. You don't want any Tom, Dick and Harry rocking up in, putting models down that aren't painted correctly, or then they haven't took the rules pack, they haven't gone through the diligence that the other captains were, because they're just rocking up as another event. But I think, you could definitely do more like an inclusive kind of other team event going on, which it gives that experience, so that if maybe they want to get involved, it could be a chance to meet their captain of their nation. It could be a chance to rub shoulders with some of the other top world players, to network, to socialize, to get the experience. I mean, for me, it was one of the reasons why I wanted to be the United Nations captain and play on the UN team, was to give me that experience of the team event, so that when I put my name in the hat for an England team, maybe it goes in my favour potentially. So there's definitely, I think, some merit to that, and I think there'd be a few people interested. But obviously this year, focus, get the World's Teams event smashed, really get that foundations laid out for years to come as it grows, and I'm sure it will really. So if people are interested in representing their country, what do they need to do, guys? Neil, how's the best way, in your opinion, for them to get involved in this event or with their country for next year? Because obviously the teams are probably picked already for most teams.
I think most teams are picked, or we should say that most teams have a sort of set out selection process through rankings, different things that they're probably well into now. So unless I can't say for everybody, but for the majority of teams, it might be a little too late. But even so, showing interest is important. So reach out to your team. Maybe of a player, who the captain of your team is in your your national community. Maybe some people have been to the ETC. Reach out that way. Also, a lot of teams have Facebook pages, so that's an easy way to find them. And actually, we have set up a website for the World the world their team championships. And that website we are now currently populating with links to the Facebook pages or forums for all the various teams.
Cool.
So you can go there and find a link
and guys,
to your
if
team.
you send me that, I'll put it on the blog page. Everyone can go to that episode, and then they can find that through that. That's a really good shout.
Yeah.
Cool. No, that'll be good because again, show interest and play well and find out the selection process and what's involved for your nation, because they are all different. It's not just one sort of way that they all do it. It is very, very different. So, guys, how can people find out more about the World Cup or this World Champ? So, obviously, you've got a website that I'll put links to. Do you have a Facebook page now?
Yeah, we started up a new Facebook page and we got 1,000 likes over the course of a week and a half. But we didn't know which name we were going to run under, so we have some issues right now with Facebook trying to change the name to what we want it to be. So it's now called Project Aquila. So you can look for that, but hopefully in a few days or in a week we will have the World Team Champs Facebook page.
Perfect. And guys, is there anything else you want to sort of conclude with? Obviously, Tom, I want to ask you some questions about the Belgium Team Champs, but is there any sort of final things that you guys want to say?
Yeah, I just want to say that there's been a lot of rumors out there that we split because of monetary reasons, but we have never taken money from the ETC. There's not really that much money to be made. We just do this because we believe in having a good event for our friends, and then this is really about the community for us. So we want to stress that. And also there's been rumors that it's tied to the Luxembourg organization. It's true partly. I mean, they were last straw, but it's not due to their organization that we left ETC. It's something that's way more grounded than that, and that's been like we said, brewing over the years. So we want to make that clear that this is really nothing to do with Luxembourg or how they organized. It was just the way they approached some things was the last straw for us, which made us pull the trigger.
Yeah, it's been just, the feeling was, here we go again. And that was not just my feeling or Tom's feeling, that was the 40k team's feeling, was here we go again. And it's a shame because, like I said at the start, and Tom as well, we believed vehemently in the ETC. We wouldn't have put 10 years of our lives. I mean, God, it's got to be probably comes like €100,000, or you can imagine, in terms of armies traveling to all the tournaments to practice, traveling to ETC, all the money you invest in year out for 10 years. We wouldn't have done that if we didn't believe in it.
Yeah.
And that's also reflecting the fact that the World Team Championships is going to happen now is a mirror of what the ETC was. It's because we still believe that this is the most amazing tournament in the world. That this player-driven nation versus nation is just it's just amazing.
Yeah,
there's no word for it.
For me, it's and this is only purely my opinion, not obviously the other guys, but this should be the biggest, most publicized 40k event in the world. It is the World Cup. It gives an opportunity for sponsors to get involved, for GW to look at this and be something that they're really proud of, to see their game being played at a world level, which is absolutely incredible. So, hopefully, I don't see any problem with, and I think you guys should be extremely well paid for what you do going forward. And I would love to see this become a professional setup where you guys can take a salary and all that good stuff. I would love that to happen. And that is, like I said, just my opinion, because I know that if you guys went all in on this, it would be something incredibly successful. I've seen what you guys have done from just volunteering, and to have that to take it to that next level, it would be incredible. And I'd love to see, people all around the world that are, interested in 40k, excited about the World Championships, telling their mates, sharing it, and, getting behind their players and supporting their team to, fly over and maybe help fund some of the trip through GoFundMes and Patreons and everything else that's out there to support the teams in, because it's the only event really which, I as a player, I get people wishing me good luck, and they maybe want me to do well, maybe because I play Blood Angels, for example. But there's something to be said for that sort of national pride, isn't it? You know, I'm not really a huge football fan or a huge rugby fan necessarily, but if England are playing, I might actually watch that game. It gives an opportunity for us to really reach more people and make our hobby even more incredible.
Yeah, and I think in that aspect, the ETC is something really unique. You know, you have some tournaments like the ATC that try to copy us a bit on the American level, but other than us doing this nation versus nation thing, it doesn't exist. So, and that's something that we should expand on, I think, and that we should keep alive. And that's basically what we're here for. We will try to make the tournament as best as we can, and we'll try to grow it going forward. And
yeah,
that,
and guys, if there's anything I can do from my end, please let me know. And if you guys ever want to come back on the show, you know, maybe before the Worlds or whatever, to give us the inside scoop on stuff, would love that, because I'm sure there'll be loads of listeners excited to hear about this new World Championships that's now being sort of formed and sort of publicised as its own thing. So honestly, guys, I wish you the very best of luck for it. And like I said, if there's anything I can do, please don't hesitate to ask. So, Tom, Belgium Team Champs, when is it?
it's in 3 days actually. So it's next weekend.
And I'm probably keeping you up from getting to your duties that you're probably manically preparing, right? But I always see you as a bit of a kind of a swan, Tom. You know, you look like you're cruising, but probably paddling furiously underneath at all times.
Yeah. Yes, exactly that. Especially the last few months. I have a 9-month-old son. So before that, I had all the time in the world to do what I needed to do. But right now, it's a struggle to find the time to manage what I managed before. So yeah, I'm paddling like a swan. That's true.
So the team champs, the Belgium team champs, this is open to anyone to play. Any team can enter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And similar format to the Worlds.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we see it as a big practice tournament, and I think that's also why it's been so successful over the years. Is because teams see it as like an early opportunity to meet teams from other countries and to test their mettle a bit, testing out the meta, some lists, some list designs, and to poke a bit here and there before they really chime down on some lists that they really want to develop for the Worlds.
Yeah.
So this year we're a full house. We have 20 teams coming from all over the world. Like we have teams from Greece, from Denmark, from the UK, from France, from Italy. So we have like 11 nations, I think. The Finns are coming, the Polish are coming. So it's going to be a really strong field with lots of ETC players. So it's going to be really great to see everybody again.
And how can people find out about your event, Tom, if they maybe want to play in the team event next year? The Belgian one, obviously, because anyone can, you know, if you're listening back home, guys, and you want to form a team, there's absolutely nothing stopping you, you know, crossing the channel or crossing the Atlantic and, you know, playing at the Belgium team champs. And like I said, if you're interested in playing for your country, it is a great opportunity to rub shoulders with captains, to rub shoulders with people like Tom, Neil, and everyone else that's going to be there to maybe introduce you to your captain in the future and stuff. So, guys, it's a bit of an unknown hotspot, I think. So, yeah, Tom, how can they find out more about your event?
Yeah, well, that's a bit the issue. So everything I do is like community driven. So I just basically every year I poke people through Facebook like, hey, we're going to throw the event again. Do you want to come? We don't really have a website or anything like that. We just have the Facebook page, the Team Belgium 40k. So if you go on there, you will always find all the announcements of everything that happens within the Belgian scene. And that's basically where we announce it and where all of the ETC followers that follow the page, because I also post like all the ETC FAQ updates up there. It's really well followed. I think we have like 500 or 600 people following us from the ETC. So they always find the info very quickly. So I don't need to have a website or really advertise the tournament. It always sells out very quickly.
Nice.
So we don't really develop anything like that. But the Team Belgium Facebook page is probably the best place to go to if you want to get the info early. Yeah.
That sounds good.
We're probably going to use the new WTC website to also have some more community news from all around the world. We're going to announce some teams as they get made during the year. We're going to announce major tournaments that happen elsewhere. We're going to have a bit more the community feel. And I think that's also what we're going to do there, is announce tournaments like these that are a good opportunity to meet people from all over the world that play ETC style or WTC style, so they can meet more easily.
Yeah.
So you should look at the World Team Champs website. That will be linked to Steven's page if you want more info going forward.
Yeah, sounds good. And I think what a great opportunity for people that are passionate about the hobby, that want to get involved in playing for their country, get to these events. But make that forward step. You're only going to get things in life by knocking down doors. So if you want to make those strides and play for your country, then you're going to have to take the initiative, and this could be a great way in the future. So guys, I just want to say thank you so much for your time tonight. I know we've gone on for about an hour, so really, really appreciate you both coming on, and I wish you the best of luck for the future, and I'm sure I'll have you both on again as time goes on.
Thanks again, Steve.
Thanks for having us, Stephen.
No worries. And guys, I'm sure we'll see you soon. So now what we'll do is head over to the next section of the podcast, which will be Better the Meta, where I go over how to beat some of the top lists that are out there. So that'll be after the break. Okay, Better the Meta, and as I said, we're going to be crushing Craft World today, and this list I've actually stolen from the 40k Brawl at Beachhead, which is a competition that I'm going to be playing or heading down to today, and playing this weekend. I'm going to be taking the Blood Angels again, but this is actually Dan Cook's list, who's running an Eldar list, and I think there's some aspects here that I quite like, so I thought, you know what, let's go over it. And yeah, it's a really, really cool list. Dan's a great player, and so we're going to see what we can do in this part of the show to help you beat some sort of these elements that you'll see typically over and over again in Craft World builds. Okay, now this does use, if you want to see this list, you can head over to BCP, or you can head over to our website and get it from there, which is www.vanguardtactics.blog/EP5. One thing to also note is that Dan Cook runs a podcast called Lookout Sir, which talks about competitive 40k in the hobby side. So to find out how he gets on, and also Joe Coles, then head over to their podcast and check it out. Right, here we go. We've got 2,000 point list. We've got one detachment, which is Custom Craft World, Expert Crafters, and also Masterful Shots. This basically means they can reroll a hit, reroll a wound, and also they ignore cover. So it's a new, very powerful combination. You pick two of these Craft Worlds or combinations, and that's what you've got. So you've got a Spirit Seer here. He's got the Seer of the Shifting Vect, which allows him to basically reroll psychic powers or a save or something that turn, and he's got Quicken. Okay, so which is a move that a power that allows you to move a unit again. He's then got 8 Shining Spears. We've then got a Night Spinner. We've then got 2 Wraith Lords with 2 missile launchers. Now this first attachment, a couple of things. These spears, they're basically moving 16 inches, and then they can move another 16 inches. So they've got a 32-inch movement, which will often give them a first turn charge. So that's something that we need to bear in mind when we're playing Shining Spears. We also see a lot of these Shining Spears as Sam Hain, so they can move in advance and still charge, and then do that twice, which gives them an additional 12 inches on top of that. So I can cover some strategies on how to screen that out shortly, but let's carry on through the rest of the list. So just quickly picking up on that, the Night Spinners, they can fire indirect, and these are really excellent at killing Marines, and the Wraith Lords are just extremely durable monsters. These guys do not have the vehicle keyword, so things that are really good against vehicles such as Haywire, also Imperial Fists, aren't really going to be doing much against these, but things like poison weapons will be, so because obviously they're a monster, not a vehicle. Then we've got another detachment, same again, Expert Crafters, Masterful Shots. We've got a Farseer with Doom and Fortune, so the Fortune gives the Spears a 5+, Feel No Pain, and Doom rerolls wounds against a target. And this Farseer's got the Falchions Wings, which basically gives him a jump pack. We've then got 3 units of Dark Reapers of 3 each. Each of those Dark Reapers have a missile launcher in those squads, so the X-Arch in rapid shot I think means he can fire twice, so you're getting 2 Reaper launcher shots plus 2 missile launcher shots. Again, re-rolling hits probably from if there's a these guys always hit on 3s naturally, and they can re-roll a hit and a wound. So out of those 4 shots, maybe 1 misses, you re-roll that into another successful hit. And then obviously they're ignoring cover as well, which just makes those Dark Reapers a little bit more punchy now. We've then got 2 flyers in that detachment. We've got 2 Crimson Hunter Exarchs, and obviously that's got 2 star cannons on each one. And then we've also got another detachment with a Warlock, and we've also got 2 Falcons and another Night Spinner and another Crimson Hunter Exarch. So we've got 3 flyers, 2 Falcons, 2 Night Spinners, 3 units of Dark Reapers, and a couple of characters here, there and everywhere, and some Shining Spears. Now the first thing about this list is going to be very light on CPs, and often Eldar do rely on their CPs for things like the +1 psychic power, which is, the Seer Council one, which is great, or they, use lightning fast reflexes, which is 2 CPs, and also Phantasm. So they are a little bit light on CPs, which I wouldn't mind a little bit more in this list, but it is what it is. So when we come down to actually beating this thing, what have we got to think about? Well, number one, these Shining Spears, they're going to be a bit of a problem, so we need to make sure that we're screening effectively. Now, these guys are pretty much on a 32mm base, and obviously what you can do with your units of troops is work out where they can land. Okay, so if you deploy your units in such a way that there is no way for them to land in between, in the movement phase, this is, you need to cut off their movement as best as you possibly can. Between lines of your units, just make sure there is not a 32mm base gap with an inch either side, okay, because obviously they can't land within an inch of your unit. So if you've got lines of infantry, just make sure it's slightly narrower, and then they won't be able to land in between that, which means you're pushing back their movement, so that the only thing they can charge is the front unit. Now the Shining Spears are going to want to try and get a wrap on, so if you then combine some of your units together, it's going to be much harder. Or if you interrupt and then expand out that unit so that everything touches, so they all have to fight, then you can hopefully kind of kill off that first weak unit, so then the Shining Spears can't get their wrap off. The other thing about Shining Spears is that they're really susceptible to being counter-charged, so if you've got a nice little counter punch in there like Bulgarin, you can charge those guys in and pick up all those spears quite comfortably. But if the Shining Spears get in combat with things like tanks, they're going to absolutely ruin you, and they just put out a bucket load of shots with loads of really good strength 6 -4 2 damage weaponry as well, which is obviously really good against Marines at the moment, but the counter charge from Marines would probably pick up most of Shining Spears in return. The 2 Wraith Lords, to be honest, aren't going to do too much. They're okay in combat, but not amazing, but these guys are just kind of distraction carnifexes, so just leave these guys alone. And the first problem that you're going to have is the Dark Reapers, because those guys, over the course of 6 turns, if you leave them alone, are going to do a lot of work against you. So anything that can fire indirect needs to be hitting these Dark Reapers. The fire in fade probably isn't really an option in this list because he doesn't have the CPs to kind of effectively do that multiple times. And even if you did it on one unit, then there's still 2 other units that you can fire at. So yeah, the Dark Reaper shouldn't be too difficult to kill off. They've only got 48-inch range, so just be prepared for them to come out of a Falcon and then start firing at you. So if you can get rid of the Falcon that they're in, then you're going to be, probably, if I was down here, I'm probably putting 2 units in one, a unit in another Falcon. So if you can start to blow up those Falcons quite quickly, and they are quite easy to kill, then not only are you getting rid of a huge portion of their fire output, but then also if he starts rolling some ones with those Dark Reapers, then they're going to start to kill themselves as they come out, leaving them exposed for any more firepower you've got to get rid of those Dark Reapers. So yeah, they're certainly on the hit list. The Crimson Hunters are obviously excellent, but they are quite hard to hit with their -1 to hit, so, and he can obviously make them -2. So to be honest, again, I'd probably leave those alone and really focus turn 1 on getting rid of the Falcons, the Dark Reapers, and the Shining Spears. Once you've done that, you're going to take some hits from the Crimson Hunters, but they obviously can't fire indirectly. So you can hide, use cover quite well, work out where they're going to be next on the next turn and kind of evade them in that way. And then if you do feel like they're a threat, get rid of them. And then if you've got anything that's quite quick or can fire out a line of sight, getting stuck into those night spinners as quickly as possible is also going to be a good strategy, but typically they'll probably be at the back of the board. They've got 48-inch range, they can't be shot, so unless you've got something coming in from deep strike or something extremely quick yourself, and obviously you can't wrap and trap these because they do have that fly keyword, which is incredibly powerful. So yeah, try and get stuck into them Dark Reapers as quickly as you can, with whatever possible to get rid of those, and you're really going to start taking the sort of punch out of the list. The night spinners are good, but also they're very, very swingy, so they're not exactly extremely reliable. So yeah, but those Dark Reapers are consistent, are reliable, and so are those planes. So they're going to be Dark Reaper priority threat number 1, then the Crimsons, and then working out to the Night Spinners later on. And if you are a combat-based army, you know, actually wrapping the Wraith Lords isn't a bad idea. They've only got 4 attacks, so at best you're going to lose 3 to 4 models. And as long as you've still got that thing wrapped, then you know you've got your combat unit safe them from everything else that's nasty in the list, which is because this is more of a shooting list rather than a combat list once the spears are dead. So get the Wraith Lords wrapped up, and also you could wrap those Dark Reapers up as well, which is always quite good. So that also means they can't shoot, or you know, you can stay locked in combat there. So anyway, on next to Ask VT, where we answer your questions that you have about all things competitive 40k. And if you have a question for the podcast, all you need to do is head over to our Instagram page at the Vanguard Tactics, shoot us a message there and let me know your question. It's time for Ask VT. So we've had loads of questions in over the last couple of weeks since we first started the podcast, and today we've had a question in from Johnny, and his question is, hi, really enjoying the podcast so far. Quick question for the future. I'm getting back into the 40k recently, having got back into the hobby through Kill Team, looking at expanding my small roster into small 40k armies, and I was wondering if you have any key tips for making lists at lower points values. What are things to bear in mind when putting together a 1,000 point list, and differences versus 1,500 up to 2,000. So I think this is a really interesting one, and I think this kind of same advice goes for whether you're starting a new army. So whether even if you're new to 40k, or whether you're thinking about starting a new army, to be honest, you want to think big picture. So once you've decided on the type of faction you want to play, because you like their playstyle, you like their lore, you like the models, whatever it is that floats your boat, then essentially you want to find out their playstyle. Now, I'll give you an example. We'll use Blood Angels. I'm in a 40k Blood Angels group, and it's an absolutely fantastic bunch of guys. Had some really good interaction with some of these chaps. Now, I'm obviously in there answering questions as I can, giving some advice and things. Now, one of the key concepts about the Blood Angels is that, in my opinion, these guys are absolutely rock hard in combat. You know, these guys are solid there. That's exactly where they want to be, in my opinion, because when you look at all of their abilities and buffs and traits, everything's melee focused, whether it's +1 to charge, +1 to wound in combat, +1 attack in combat from certain characters, or exploding 6s in combat. When they get to their super doctrine, it's another attack. So there's so many buffs and abilities there for combat. There's literally nothing compared to, or should I say, for like the shooting phase or anything like that. So really, we've got a list here that's built around combat. So once you're, you know, even thinking about a 500 or 1,000 point list, you want to think big picture. Okay, so what does a 2,000 point army want to have? Well, it's probably going to want a battalion, maybe 2 battalions. So what are the troops that I'm going to need to be fielding? So when we're looking at the troop options, which troop option is going to play to the play style of your army? So if we're looking at Marines, we've got scouts, we've got sniper scouts, we've got incursors, we've got infiltrators, and we've got intercessors. And obviously with different types of loadouts in regards to weapons, are they heavy, rapid fire, assault, all that kind of stuff. For me, there's a clear pick, and they are incursors. If I had to choose a unit for troops, it would be incursors. They are exceptional in combat compared to all the others. And they can have the ability to push forward, and that's exactly what the Blood Angels want to do. So what I've done here is I've picked a unit that is ultimately gearing towards the play style of my army, and then because I want to run double battalion, I can't quite squeeze in the others, and so I can't take 6 units of this, so I've gone for some combat scouts, do something similar but just not quite as durable. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm gearing towards when I'm writing a smaller point list. So I'd be looking at taking 3 squads of the same. And here's another tip, really: if you're getting new to a army or new to anything, take something multiple times. So rather than taking a unit of this, a unit of that, and a unit of something else, decide what you think looks great and also is going to be competitive to the playstyle of the army, and take it multiple times. That way, when you're playtesting and you're practicing, you're going to get extremely proficient at knowing their rules. Every time you've got to check the codex and you've got to remember something else, it's going to slow down your games and slow down your enjoyment, and also probably detract from what you're trying to achieve in the mission as well. So yeah, do kind of streamline your thought process. So, with the Blood Angels, maybe 3 units of incursors. Okay, then if I've got 1,000 points to play with, I'm probably going to need 2 HQs. Okay, so what HQs are going to work quite well with these? Probably look at some of the most point efficient units there. So something like Ashtaroth, great character, and then maybe a Smash Captain. A couple of things there, do different roles, whether it's taking down some big nasties or tackling a squad or two. So chuck in a couple of characters you think you're going to need for the long term, fantastic, they're also in. And then you've got some points left over for a hard hitting unit, so pick one of the most iconic units from your codex, and take a big old unit of it and get used to playing with that unit. So that could be 10 Sanguinary Guard, for example, or a big unit of 15 Death Company, and that's probably going to do you well. And then once you've got used to that, you build out another battalion very similar with some slight differences to help you in your harder matchups. But now you've got a really good core to the army that you can build on and expand, rather than having a smattering of this, that and the other, and it not really having a play style and not really being effective, and also not really giving you an idea of what that army's capable of. So anyway, hope that helps. So we've also had another question from Battlefield Bermondsey, and this question is: Hi, I'm the founder of a small club in London called Battlefield Bermondsey and have just started listening to podcasts, and I'm really happy that I was introduced to it via a club member. Love what you guys are doing. I got back into the hobby last year and decided that this year I would start an ITC tournament due to the interest from other members. I'm a complete beginner and have started to build my Eldari list, as this was my army I collected when I was a child. My question is, do you think Beltan can be a competitive craft world, and how would you go about it? This is the colour scheme I have loved since I was a child. Yeah, do you know what? Beltan are absolutely wicked. I love their kind of aspects in that's kind of what they do, is aspect warriors. So I really, I'm definitely on board with this one, and a great question. So I actually really rate Beltan as a faction itself, and obviously you've got some really good options now with Psychic Awakening. Okay, so I think there's some really good options here. Now Beltan have some really cool things. One of those is a Warlord trait where you can pick a Warlord, and also for that turn, that unit can reroll hits. Absolutely brilliant. So it's like a free guide, which is like a psychic power which allows you to reroll failed hits, which is incredibly powerful. Also, their ability for shuriken weapons, reroll 1s to hit. So again, we've kind of seen how powerful this kind of stuff is with Iron Hands. Unfortunately, it's not for all weapons, it's just for shurikens. So some really, really strong elements there. So really, when we're looking for some builds, and now with the Psychic Awakening aspect abilities to sort of build in some extra buffs there, could be some really good combos. So for me, if I'm building an army of Beltan, I'm probably going to be going, and I actually took Beltan to the ETC 2 years ago when I played in the singles there with 3 Wave Serpents, all with shurikens, loaded out with 30 Dire Avengers, and that is an absolute gunboat platform, because they're all re-rolling 1s. I think I had a Suruman in there as well, because he's an absolute beast in combat, especially if you can get him buffed up with some psychic powers like +1 to wound. He becomes really, really powerful. So yeah, I'd probably be taking maybe 3 to 6 Wave Serpents in a list, all with shurikens, and I'll probably be taking anywhere from 30 to 60 Dire Avengers, and then smatter in some farces, some warlocks, just for things like Doom and Jinx, and that would be a really, really good start to a list. And then maybe build in something like 9 Shining Spears, again, lots of shurikens with rerolls, which could be quite good. Also, they can come in from Deep Strike with some pluses to charge, which is also nice. Combine that with the new Psychic power for pluses to charge. You can get a really good guaranteed charge now from Deep Strike, which is good, really good, because Beltan have got a really nice stratagem. So there's definitely that to be looked at. So you're looking at Shining Spears, Beltan, Dire Avengers, and then also maybe some Dark Reapers as well, whether they're coming in from Deep Strike or they're starting in a Wave Serpent potentially if you don't need the Dire Avengers in one. So yeah, I think that sounds like a really good core. You don't really need an Autarch then. If you've got 2 farces, you can fortune the spears, you can guide the reapers, you can doom the target and then put executioner or something like that else on something that you need to, so you can have an aggressive farseer, defensive farseer. And then what you could also add in is a warlock or 2. So again, on one with jet bike, so you can cast quicken, so you can double move the spears if you want to start them on the board, so they can get a first turn charge. Or what you can do is protect them. So now these, guys, these Shining Spears have got a 3+ invulnerable save from combat, from shooting, and then a 2+ save in combat. And then also they're going to get a 5+ feel no pain, which makes these guys super resilient. So yeah, that would probably be where I'd be going, but really playing into their ability to arrive from Deep Strike and make a charge, which the Shining Spears do really well at. And then also the reroll ones on shurikens, so you can take more farces and warlocks and not need to worry about the autarchs. Okay. So I hope that answers your question, and I wish you the best of luck for running those ITC competitions where you are. And if you get any more questions, please let me know. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Apologies, it was a bit of a longer one. We had lots to get through. And obviously, if you want to find out anything about from the show, any of the show notes, head over to www.vanguardtactics.com/blog/EP5. You also, if you head over to our blog page, you'll be able to find all the other episodes and all the other blog pages. So you can find out any cheat sheets or anything like that you might want or be interested in. So again, I hope you enjoyed this one. Please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever it is that you listen to us. It really does mean a lot, and it helps this podcast reach more people and also grow into something a little bit more than what it is at the moment. So anyway, guys, take care, and we'll see you next week.